Okay, now we're moving on to discipline techniques. There's three discipline techniques that were essentially identified by Grusek and Goodnow in 1994. So there's power assertion, inductive techniques, and withdrawal of love. Parents tend to use all three of these, but it usually depends on the situation, which I will discuss towards the end. But first, let's talk about power assertion. Power assertion is a use of authority in either physical or verbal means. Its primary purpose is to discourage undesirable behavior. So, power assertion is anytime a parent uses their authority, anytime they use discipline in order to get what they want from the child. And this is primarily used to discourage undesirable behavior. So, examples of power assertion are withdrawal of privileges, grounding, and spankings. Question: is timeouts power assertion, where you tell the child to go to the room and sit on the corner of the bed for 5 minutes, or even stand in the corner? The answer to that is yes, because is the parent using their authority to get the child to do what they want them to do with timeouts and standing in the corner? Yes. So that's power assertion. Inductive techniques. This is the use of reason and applying to the child's sense of fairness. So essentially it's talking with the child and helping them understand, and to get them to understand you have to use reason, and you have to apply to their sense of fairness. The main objective of inductive techniques is to induce desirable behaviors. So power assertion is what we would call a stop. Inductive techniques is what we would call a start. Stop bad behaviors, start good behaviors. The second objective with inductive techniques is to discourage undesirable behavior. So with inductive techniques, its primary purpose is to start desirable behaviors, and a second objective, kind of further down the line, would be to stop undesirable behavior. Examples: explaining and discussing limits and rules, getting ideas from the child, such as what do you think should happen? What do you think would be a fair discipline? That would be kind of an inductive technique right there, but simply sitting and listening and talking to the child, that is overall inductive techniques. Then we have withdrawal of love. This is when the caretaker withholds their obvious affection and shows obvious displeasure with the child. So, example of withdrawal of love is the mean look, the cold shoulder, just flat out ignoring the child. Okay, so parents tend to use all three of these discipline techniques, but it depends on the situation. And what we mean by that is, for instance, when we want to teach our children something, such as to show concern for others, or not to be rude, or to teach table manners or proper etiquette. That is what we would use inductive reasoning for. For power assertion, we tend to use power assertion if someone or something is going to get hurt. Another example is, if you're not going to get a second chance. So, for instance, if your child almost runs out into traffic, I personally would not use inductive reasoning for that, because I might not get a second chance. That's dangerous. So I would use power assertion. I might spank my child, because I'd want my child to understand that is not acceptable. If I don't get a second chance, it might be a time to use power assertion. By the way, you don't need to know this for the test. A lot of this is coming out because I'm a therapist and I work a lot with families. Power assertion isn't something that should be overused. If you find yourself relying too much on your authority, that could cause you problems down the road. So, for instance, if I spank my child for everything, and then I spank my child for the first time they run out in the middle of the road, the child has no way to differentiate, getting spanked for, not cleaning up his room versus something life-threatening such as running out into traffic and getting spanked for. If you don't use power assertion very much, when you do use it, you're really sending a signal to your child as, wow, this is serious. Okay, moving on, back to notes. Um, this is important. You want to use power assertion and inductive reasoning to deal with such situations such as lying and stealing. Research has clearly shown that you can't address lying or stealing just with power assertion or with inductive reasoning. You really need to do both. Parents choose their strategy based on their belief on its effectiveness, but more so on their confidence in their ability to carry it out. So parents tend to choose their discipline technique on effectiveness, but more so on their confidence that they can carry it out. So this is why it's not uncommon to find fathers relying more on power assertion. Fathers being males, we're not enculturated to pay as much attention to emotions or the relationship as, say, females. So since we're kind of uncomfortable with relationships, and inductive reasoning requires, sensitivity and understanding, a father might be more confident with using his authority, and so therefore would choose power assertion more. A mother, being a female, being enculturated to be more aware of feelings, put more of an emphasis on relationship, she might feel more comfortable in using inductive reasoning and not so much power assertion, because she might not feel as confident with her authority. So, once again, parents choose their strategy based on their belief of effectiveness, but more so on their confidence, on their ability to carry it out. Okay, and this helps, all right. We did that to understand why fathers tend to use power assertion more than mothers. Okay, the goal of parenting is to have the child internalize parental teachings in the form of self-discipline. Essentially what that means is, black and white of it, is that we want our children to behave even when we aren't there to punish them. That's what we mean by internalizing and self-discipline, is that they behave even when they aren't going to get punished because the parents aren't around. What Grusek and Goodnow found, and we've known this for actually quite some time, getting children to internalize parental teaching depends on being warm and responsive. The warm and responsiveness is what really guides the discipline. If I'm not warm and responsive, but I'm always disciplining, it's kind of like being a boss and just bossing my employees around and not caring about my employees. That's a bad boss, just like it would be a bad parent. So I want you to notice the tie-in back to this in Baumrein's parenting, as we saw authoritative, where you balance discipline with the relationship, is the best way to get a child to learn, to be responsible, to have good grades, to be social, to be friendly. So this all ties in together. Okay. So this is what I was talking about. Generally, it's the warmth and responsiveness that helps a child respect the control, the discipline of the parent. The boss example, as I mentioned before, if you have a boss that just looks at you as a warm body fulfilling a position, you're not going to be very fond of that boss. So therefore, if you do what you need to do, basically out of fear of consequences, you don't want to get fired because you need the money to pay the job, but you're not going to do anything extra. Why should you? But if you have a good, caring boss, like an authoritative parent would be, someone who does, you're not just a warm body doing a job, you're a person. And, I care and respect for that person. So I do expect you to do your job, and the consequences are still there. However, our relationship is going to motivate you to do a better job, and maybe to do a little bit extra, and to maybe help out. And why? Not because of fear of consequences like an authoritarian parent or authoritarian boss, but because of the relationship. So, I hope this helps out. And that's it. Good luck with those quizzes.